All right. Well, welcome everyone to this Let's Learn live session, part of the TESOL 2022 Electronic Village, brought to you by the Computer Assisted Language Learning Interest section. I am very excited to have with us today Deborah Healey, who is one of the past presidents of TESOL International Association and one of the team members that will be bringing you the conference next year, the convention next year in Portland. So welcome, Deborah. Today she is going to be talking to us about creating digital stories with PowerPoint and Creative Commons media. And she's going to offer us all some easy steps to start out with movie making and using some of the other features on PowerPoint. And she's also going to walk us through some of the features of the freely usable Creative Commons labeled media that will definitely add a spark to presentations while also respecting ownership without copyright infringement. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Let's see if thank you. Okay, what happened? Oh, there. Okay, my Zoom just moved over when you left. All right, I got it. I'm here. Okay, come on, share. All right, soon, if not just now, you should be seeing my PowerPoint. I hope that you are, because I'm going to be talking about creating digital stories with PowerPoint and Creative Commons, because so many of us would like to learn more about our learners, and digital stories are a great tool to use in order to get there with them, to learn about them, and to build their digital literacy skills. You can see here the link to the site that has a lot more resources. I'll show it again at the end with a QR code. So let me move on to my next next piece. I'm going to put this into 5 pieces. I'm going to talk about digital storytelling elements in phase 1 and phase 2, content and media, which will be the large portion of this. A little bit about phase 3 and how to create a digital story. Phase 4, how to record the show. And this is where I'll show you how to do it with PowerPoint. And phase 5, how to save and share your video. Phase 1 is the 10 elements of educational digital storytelling coming from the University of Houston. These are useful things for us to know as teachers, and also useful for our learners to see that you need these different elements to make a really good, powerful digital story. We have to start with the overall purpose. For the teacher, this is, of course, the learning objective. I mean, if it doesn't fit a learning objective, this is, why are we doing this? So we set up the purpose for our learners so that it matches a learning objective. And then we have them think about which point of view. Is it first person, my point of view? Is it a third person point of view? And like with all good stories, we want to start with a dramatic question. What is it that you're going to gain from watching this and being able to watch through it, and what question will be answered by the end? So in the next phases that I'll be talking about, we'll get into the rest of the elements of educational digital storytelling, the content, media quality, having a meaningful soundtrack, and then clarity of voice, pacing, economy of detail, and language quality. So these are the 10 elements of educational digital storytelling that will infuse your creating a digital story. If we look at phase 2, content and media. This is, of course, where we get at the story. Like you would be creating a story to give orally or in writing, you want to have a plan for your story. You want it to make an impact. And with a digital story, you can use media of different kinds, images, audio, video, to add to the impact. And in part, in order to do that well, you'll often use a storyboard. This is what you see on the screen, a sample storyboard, and on the website that I'll show you again at the end, you can find a couple of sample storyboard templates to use. But with this, you're planning. if you want to use media effectively, if you want to create a great digital story, you really need to plan ahead. So you've got the first square, the frame, where you can sketch a little image or have an idea of what the scene will look like. Then you describe it in the next box. Then you give a media list, and then some of the narration. What are you going to say? Because you want everything to fit together, this is a very useful way to go. If you're just doing a quick cell phone video, let me talk while I pan around with my camera, well, that's gonna be different. You don't need a whole storyboard. But if you do want to use media in this, then it's very useful to have something like a storyboard. Time limit is on a variety of levels. First of all, of course, you're going to have a time limit for the video. But because the different steps take time, you want to put time limits on how much time people are going to spend looking for media, trying to find stuff, figuring out what things they want. Because as you'll see later, there are ways to spend a whole lot of time looking for media. At this point, what I'd like to have from you is a response in the chat about where your students get media. A, they make it themselves, the images, the audio, the music. B, they right-click and download what they like. Or C, they know how to look for media labeled as freely usable, and that's what they use. So could you please respond in the chat about how your students get media? I see a lot of B's, of course, and this is true for many of us as teachers. We will right-click and download. Well, and part of the reason why I wanted to do this was to give us some other options. So instead of just right-clicking and downloading what they like, let's talk about content with Creative Commons, because it's okay to use Creative Commons media. Let me take a brief delve into ownership and copyright. I mean, in the United States, we're very concerned about copyright. The European Union, UK, we talk about copyright. The rest of the world may or may not care so much, but the issue of ownership, I think, is more valid as an issue for our learners, because many of our learners are becoming digital creators. And when they create their digital story, they will be digital creators. And the idea that other people could just grab what they've created and put somebody else's name on it may not sit very well with them. That may be a better argument for them to say, hey, you don't want people taking your stuff. Well, let's find a way to not take other people's stuff. Just to tell people don't do it isn't going to work. What you need to do is say, here's your option. And your option is Creative Commons. This is a license that authors, creators have put on their work that lets other people use it. There are different levels, different licenses. CC0 is the wonderful one. You don't have to say who it's by. You can modify it. You can put it into things that you're selling. Wonderful choice if you get a CC0 labeled item. CC BY is way more common, where you have to say the name of the author when you use the author's stuff. And CC BY NC means you have to use the name of the author and you can't use it in something that you sell. You may notice that my slides here are labeled as CC BY NC, which means you can use them, but you need to have my name on them. And I don't want you to put them in something that you sell, but I'm willing to share. You can get some free images from a number of CC places. Pixabay is one I'll talk about in a minute. CC Search, Wikimedia Commons. With Pixabay, it's CC0, CC Search, and Wikimedia Commons are mostly CC BY. You put the author's name. Or what's even better, you use your learner's own photos and drawings. If they're talking about themselves, their town, their house, they take pictures. They take their own photos. And with so many people having mobile phones, this is not hard. Or if you have artists in the class, they can collaborate with others to create the art. And so that's a great way to go. And I don't know if you've used any of these options, but these are wonderful options. And most of the things you'll see in my presentations are Pixabay. This is an example from Pixabay. This is a search for happy of 338 hits. You've got 9 of them listed here. One of the things I like about Pixabay is that you have different looking people from different places. It's not all people from North America on Pixabay. You also have clip art, line art, vector art. So you have a variety of types of art. And so I really like Pixabay as a source for images that you can freely use. Audio and video are harder. Teachers are often use the term fair use. Well, that works sort of with text. With audio and video, there is no fair use for downloaded audio and video. You cannot download audio and video. You can link to it, but you can't download it in most audio and video, unless it comes from a CC labeled or a freely usable labeled site like Free Music Archive or dig.ccmixer.org. Those are music. Wikimedia Commons, images, audio, and video. And then I'll talk in a minute about a couple of Liza Brown's video suggestions. So this is an image from Free Music Archive. You can see you have a bunch of genres. You can choose with vocals, without vocals. And I hope you can hear this in this. But I'm playing a little bit of Trillium Line by Admiral Bob. Or even better, you create your own. GarageBand and Music Maker Jam are both iOS apps. Songmaker on Chrome or Chrome Experiments is wonderful. But this is where the time limit comes in, because you could spend hours playing with Songmaker. Not that I've spent hours playing with Songmaker, but I have. So you want to make sure you put a time limit on this. And if you have students who make music, have them work with other students. It's great collaboration, and they have that ownership and pride when they can share what they do with other learners. Some sources of video. This is a couple of things from Liza Brown's best websites for downloading free public domain footage. Moving Image Archive is mostly historical. Pexels gives you these quick clips that are great for background use, people walking across a street, subway going through, train, a mountain scene. So you have a couple of easy sources of video here. She has more on her website. And again, you can find the links to this all on the last slide. I'll share that with you again. So there you've got a variety of places to get freely usable media. You've downloaded your freely usable media, or you've created the freely usable media, and now it's time for phase 3, which is to practice. Our learners don't like the idea that they have to do it again, but the reality for video production is you're going to do it again. The beauty of practice is that with practice, you get a number of these other elements for a digital story, which are focus. You can make sure you're really going laser-like to answer that dramatic question that you started with. You get your pacing right, so you're not too fast, not too slow. You practice language, and having peer commenting is a great way to go with this, because they're showing each other what they're planning to do, and they're going to redo it. It's going to be wonderful practice, because they are repeating and practicing again, because multiple practice means it's going to go way more smoothly and just be better, and their language will get better as they practice. Now we're into the recording part of this. You can watch some how-to videos to see how to do any of this. PowerPoint is really easy, and that's why I'm talking about PowerPoint today, because it's actually very easy to create a movie from PowerPoint. You can do something similar with Google Slides, but you need to screencast if you want narration in your Google Slides. I'm assuming that over time, you'll get all of these features in Google Slides, but right now it's not there. And you're going to want to edit and repeat. Okay, now I'm going to show you a sample. I'm going to stop sharing this so that I can open up my next piece to share with you. And let me go to my YouTube, and you can find this on, oops, hang on. I don't want to start that yet. Now I'm ready to go back to Zoom and share my screen. Let me make sure we share sound. Okay. And let's go for creating a video. I did this piece as a video because I'm here in Pittsburgh in a hotel room. I don't, my house doesn't look quite like this, but you know, and because I'm on a older Windows laptop, I'm using PowerPoint 2016. It doesn't have the ability to show the webcam with it. But if you use Windows 365, a later version of PowerPoint, you can have a webcam element to this. So that's why I'm going to show you this this way. And by the way, this is my garden. So if you wanted your learners to talk about hobbies, it's a wonderful hobby to talk about. Also a plug at the very end, you'll find a link to the resource list, and there you can find some templates for creating this kind of quick and easy PowerPoint. So let's get started. Please let me know if the audio is not working. I've got a very short PowerPoint here to demonstrate with. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to insert some audio. I've got a file ready. I'm going to insert this one. And it doesn't really matter where you put it because as you'll see later, we're going to hide it so that it's not visible. Now I can see audio format and playback up here. Let me click on playback. I want it to play across slides and I'm going to have it start automatically. So it's going to start automatically, it's going to play across slides, and I want it to hide during the show. This way, you're not going to see this little image when you're showing the show. Now we can go back to slideshow, and now we are ready to record our slideshow. You see a very different looking screen now. You can see the highlighters at the bottom. You see a record button at the top. You can turn on or off the camera and the mic. Right now the camera is on, which is why my little picture is on at the bottom. Let's get started. All right, so here is my first slide. I can click to move on. You see the transition. You see another transition and some animations. One thing to watch is to be sure that you don't talk during the transition because it's only recording when you're on a specific slide. That's it. We're done. We can click stop to stop it or click end show because when the show ends, the recording ends. Now we've done our recording. You can see there's the picture at the bottom. If I decide I want to move that, I can. It moves slide by slide. If we go to the next one, I decide, well, I'd really just have this much smaller. I can make it really tiny so it's hardly noticeable. This one's okay. This one, maybe I again want to be tiny. And I'll make it small again. So now I have something that has some pictures of me and some not. And it's entirely up to you what you choose. If I want to see what it's going to look like, I can now click play from start. All right, so here's my first slide. I can click to move on, position. We've looked at the recording, it looks okay. Now it's time to export it and as a movie so that we can actually have an MP4. We go to File, we're going to choose Export, and then not a PDF, but let's call it an MP4. Okay, in this case, I've added recording. You can choose the presentation quality, internet quality, low quality. Let's keep it fairly high. We want to use recorded timings and narrations. This is important to have, otherwise the work we just did is not going to stay with it. And let's choose export. And there we are. Now we wait a few moments for it to actually export, and then we can take a look.
Okay, we've got our MP4. I'm not going to play it again, but you can try it yourself. See how it works for you. It's actually simpler than you think. Good luck.
Okay, so that was that. Let me make sure I don't have this go. Let's cancel. As I've had way too often that, let me stop share here and go back to my PowerPoint. Let's start the share on the PowerPoint again. Okay. All right, so on the resource list, you can find a link to this if you want to watch it again. It's also on my YouTube channel, so you can see it if anytime you wish to. Phase 5 is saving and sharing. So this is the last step. It's fairly straightforward. You can upload it to YouTube, put it on Vimeo, put it in your blog. The thing to remember here is that you want to watch for privacy settings. You have to be very careful if you have young learners who are showing themselves in their video. There you want to make it as private as possible. The beauty of a digital story is that it can be shared. So you really want it to be shared, but you got to let people know to be careful about how they share it. And if it goes completely public, this is sort of a level of sharing that you may or may not want. If it's unlisted on YouTube, it's a little better. If it's within a learning management system, it's extremely private and it's not really broadly shared. So you got to balance those. Okay, and now finally, my last slide here. What do you think? Is this something you'd like to try? What could your learners gain from doing this? Please share in the chat what you think about this very short and quick presentation. And thank you. Do feel free to contact me. This is my email, and this is the QR code and the website that has a whole bunch more resources and tips on it. So feel free to email me or go ahead and go to my my site and get this. So if you've used this, that's great. I think your learners, if you haven't used this and you have PowerPoint, it really is easy. As you can see, it took me about 3 minutes to explain how to do it in PowerPoint. So how to do that little explanation of turning your PowerPoint into a movie. So I hope that this has been useful to you. If you have questions, then feel free to ask the questions that you have. I normally do this as like an hour to hour and a half presentation to talk about digital storytelling. So it's been very fun trying to do a little snippet of digital storytelling in 20 minutes. So I hope it's been useful for you. Any questions?
You think I would remember to unmute, but I didn't. Yes, please do share your questions for Deborah in the chat. And also, if you'd like to turn your mic on, please just raise your hand and we can do that as well. We've got lots of positive feedback coming in through the chat, Deborah, saying that people are excited to use it with students and also to create some materials for classes as well. So I think you've inspired some ideas in our audience.
I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see more people. I'm hoping that everybody's had a chance to get the site or the QR code, and that way we can, have us come up a little more easily. PowerPoint 2013. Okay, let me talk a little bit about that. With earlier versions of PowerPoint, it works much the same way, except for the webcam, so that you can do everything that you could do here, except have a webcam part of it. So it's not going to have your picture in it. It actually is, most of the time, you don't necessarily want your picture in it. You're going to do the digital story with the focus on what you're talking about, not on you. So I just wanted to be able to show you what that possibility was, but 2013 is very fine if you just want to create a digital story and export it as an MP4, earlier versions of PowerPoint. And it's very true, as Monica says, they'll want to get better. They'll want to rehearse. They will want to practice more. And this is perfect. It's exactly what we want them to do, because telling them, oh, do it twice, do it. I mean, how many of your learners, when you say you should practice and do your presentation twice before you do it in class? At least my students never did. But when it's going to go out on, to the world, it's going to be maybe on YouTube. You want to practice, you want to get it perfect. And so it's like taking the teacher out as the taskmaster and making that an internal, ooh, I want this to look good, and not the teachers telling me. Because again, if you have an external audience, PowerPoint versus Google Meets, I think it's really a question of how much media you want to integrate and how familiar you are with integrating media in different ways. I like PowerPoint because you can plan it ahead. You can add the pieces that you want. You can do all of that and then record using PowerPoint, and then recording in Google Meets also works. You can use PowerPoint and record in Zoom. That also works. So you can certainly do it that way too. In that case, if you're going to use one of these other tools to record, then you can certainly do a Google Slides or anything else to record. The advantage of PowerPoint is that you've got like one little package, and you don't have to be online to use PowerPoint for most people. You have a thing that you can do on your desktop or on your tablet. To cut and edit a video, no, you can't use PowerPoint to cut and edit a video, but there are many other tools out there. Microsoft Movie, Apple's iMovie lets you edit your video if you want. To me, it's better to tell learners that it really needs to be perfect. So then they practice it again, but I'm not a nice person. I make them do it over. Yeah. But that's basically it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Deborah. I think a lot of times people tend to overlook that feature within PowerPoint. It is very straightforward and easy to use, and accessible, as you said, offline, which is a benefit for creation compared to some of the other editing and video creation tools I know that I've used as well. Mm-hmm. And also, thank you for bringing up the bigger picture concepts of ownership and Creative Commons and finding images and other multimedia items that can be used freely and with attribution when required, giving that credit to the creators that our students and we as teachers are bringing into the things that we are building and creating, and digital stories. I know personally, when I created one before doing them with students, it ended up being a lot more meaningful and deeper kind of meta experience than I expected. So your students might be skeptical about the idea, but I bet that they will end up taking more away from it than they ever could have imagined. So thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. And on my website, you see a link to Story Center that has some beautiful videos that are done, many of them by English language learners. So that might be a nice way to start with your learners. And I don't want to go over my time here, so.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you, audience, too, for your enthusiasm. Again, all those positive comments are pouring in, which we appreciate. And you all sharing your experiences through the chat is also a valued part of these presentations. So we are going to wrap up this session now. As you can see, there's some information being shared on the screen about how you can connect with TESOL's Call Interest section, the Computer Assisted Language Learning Interest section, including our YouTube site. And Deborah's presentation and many of our sessions throughout this year's Electronic Village are already available on the YouTube channel and will be added each day of the convention. So I encourage you to subscribe and to revisit that site as a great repository of EdTech professional development resources. All right. So let me get set up and transitioned here for our next presenter. Thank you again, Deborah. We appreciate your time and for being here.
Bye-bye. Okay, Hannah, just look at my website. You can find links to find instrumental free from copyright.
Great. Thank you.